that we're going to be stimulating questions as we go. So this is an everybody question, so could you please state what your occupation is and be specific? From the audience, please.
Mine's real easy. I am a network security engineer. I work basically troubleshooting and helping companies secure their networks.
I work for a nonprofit in El Dorado County, and I am administrative assistant that does the website, the phones, the paperwork, anything to do with the computer. That's me.
I'm a real estate broker. I've been an agent here in the county for 38 years.
My name is Jack Sweeney, and I'm proud to tell you I've spent my whole life in this county. I was a farmer. That farm is now a subdivision called Greenstone Country that I designed. So if you want to talk about the density, I think it's a pretty good design. I'm a land surveyor by trade. I spent 17 years on the Board of Supervisors here, part of it from 1985 through 1992, and the other part from 2003 through 2012, I guess. So, thank you. Well, I'm retired now, I'm supposed to be. So I had some spare time, and I thought I'd come be quizzical about measures E and G.
So this will be one side, the other side. So let's try to make it succinct so we get a bunch of stuff in. You've got roughly 40 minutes for questions, and then you can sum it up with 10 minutes on each side. This is a good one. How will water be impacted if energy passes?
Yes.
How will it be impacted? Water. It's a big question.
That's a big question. I'll go ahead, I guess. In the general plan, there is, as Kim explained the general plan and how it came about, there were policies in there, and they had to be implemented. So it says you're going to have this kind of policy, but then the county actually had to go and implement it and create the ordinances that went with the policy. And to date, they haven't finished all of those. And so that's the heart of Measure G, is that some of those policies need to be completed, and one of them is called the Water Supply and Demand Management Policy. I think that's the name of it. But basically all it is, there's been a lot of confusion about that. It makes sense that the land use authority in the county should have an idea of what our inventory is of our water. So what it would say is, this is how much our groundwater supply could supply. This is how much our different water purveyors could supply, and therefore you would be making good decisions on land use. And part of the reason for that is that we did just do a general plan update. There were over 20 amendments during that process, and there was an environmental impact report for that update. And one of the impacts that they said was unavoidable is that we will run out of groundwater supply. It wasn't an if statement. It said if we develop the plan as it currently is written, we will run out of water, groundwater. So that's something that as we move forward as a county we need to be aware of, that we're watching our water. So that's just one of the many policies that needs to be implemented in our plan.
What was the question?
Water. How will, if E&G pass, how will water be impacted?
Well,
How will water be impacted if E&G pass? I'm sorry, everybody can't hear back there. They're asking that we speak up.
I can't tell you how, because I'm having a difficult time with my experience in understanding the general plan, and I've spent since 1975 working on getting more water for the county. Until those measures pass and you put them side by side and analyze them, I think what they're asking for is more reporting on water supplies. If you go on the El Dorado County website, look up the El Dorado County Water Agency, and you will find annually a report on the status of water supplies in the county. How much is in storage at the time, and it'll refer you to the EID, to the Tahoe, to North Tahoe, into Georgetown's water supplies in containment systems that are piped to people. And it'll tell you also how much water rights we have and how much water rights we're working on. So that information is available at your fingertips. I don't know why people don't know where it is. The groundwater is another problem. And in this county, most of the groundwater, we don't have a water table like they do in Sacramento or in Fresno. We have water in the rock interstices that geologists will tell you they don't really know how that hydraulic system works, but it's there sometimes. And it's a quizzical game, because one person can go down 600 feet and get nothing, and another person can go down 100 feet and get 35 gallons a minute. So it's a quizzical problem. One of the things that the county has done is that whether you're on a piped system or whether you're on a groundwater system, you have to prove the availability of that water. And in a groundwater system, that means you have to drill a well and see what kind of drawdown that is for a 24-hour period before you can build there, or before you can subdivide the lots. So I think we have some good measures in place.
I think it's pretty safe to say if you have more people, you need more water, right?
But you can't make groundwater. The good Lord takes care of that. You can capture the runoff water and put it in storage. And what we ought to be doing in the whole state is put more water in reservoirs for a non-rainy day.
Okay. Why did the supervisors make an executive decision to override the majority interests, I'm sorry, shouldn't have been a comma there, the interests of the residents to control growth? Should that make sense, or should I try to restate that?
I was the one
Please, explain.
that the supervisors in reading the general plan made executive decisions to override the general plan. In 1996, 2004, 2008, they just decided to say, no, we're going to do it this way. Why don't you do it?
Respond to that if you got it. You don't have to respond. You can just say no.
Yeah, so it's interesting, there's a lot of language about discretionary approvals, and what these are is exemptions. These aren't,
Blank check rule.
these aren't something to do with the general plan, these are exemptions from the general plan.
Well, a discretionary project is one that requires either a planning commission decision or a board of supervisors decision on land use. And it's appealable from the planning commission to board of supervisors. An administrative decision is not. The discretionary, the administrative is frankly the exception. If you meet all the requirements, you get it administratively. If you don't meet the requirements, you have to go through the discretionary process. And I don't know of the citations of the years that you say that
The public said in the general plan that the interest of the public said we want you to go by this plan. Here's the general plan, it's 5 houses, not 10, and the supervisors came in and says, okay, you'll do 10.
that's an extremely broad question, and I'm
I'll look it
unable
up for
to.
you. It's in the,
I don't think we did, but that's,
I know you did, I'll look it up.
show me and I'll sit down with you and talk about it, help you understand it better.
All right, next. Who is the originator of E&G and what political and or unions are funding them?
Okay, E&G came out in 2014. It kind of started with the Shingle Springs Community Alliance, started talking to other community groups throughout the whole county, and we all realized that there were some issues with, well, the community region lines or the urban boundary lines in our general plan, and Shingle Springs particularly doesn't want to become an urban area, so we had been talking to the Board of Supervisors to get that shrunk down and contracted to be more around our urban, commercial core, to be our urban boundary line, rather than have it spread out into what we consider our ranches, low density. And it turned out that Camino and Plot Pines had already kind of started that discussion with the board. And then it also turned out we had talked to the Green Valley on that area where Dixon Ranch is, and they would like their urban lines contracted. And so when we found at the board level that they said that it was going to be in this general plan update process, and then the next time we went to a meeting we were told it wasn't in the process, and it got very frustrating. And so we decided to take it into our own hands and do these initiatives. And then what happened is, at the same time, so that was one of the initiatives, and I don't know if some of you remember the 1, 2, 3 petitions that we were circulating. We called them yellow, purple, green, because that was the color of the paper. And we thought, well, while we're out getting signatures, we might as well get signatures also, because Measure Y, which is our traffic control circulation policy, is going to be expiring in 2018. And that's a big concern. And so we worked with several groups to draw up the language for what is now Measure E this year. We had anticipated it was going to be on the 2014 ballot, but there was an extra report ordered on it by the Board of Supervisors, and so it got delayed until this year. And then also, one of the other big problems that we were having is we kept requesting that the Board of Supervisors direct staff to finish those policies that weren't completed in the general plan. And the ugliest example we have of it is in Shingle Springs again. We got an ugly billboard, and it's blocking the view of the Cascades as you drive up Highway 50, that beautiful scenery that we used to have. There's now an ugly billboard there. And if the county had put some staff time and resources into doing the scenic corridor policy that was promised to us in the plan, that billboard couldn't have happened. So it was getting frustrating that projects were moving forward without the policies that we were promised. So that's how the third one got drawn up, basically to get these policies put in place that we were promised, and also some of those that had been amended since the 2004 general plan was put in place. They've been amended a couple times over the years, and it was leading to the higher densities, so we decided to put it back to what it was when the voters approved it in 2004. I hope that makes sense.
Safe to say there are no unions on your side?
Question was who?
It's just grass, it's just grass. I said it started with the Shingle Springs community, and that's it.
Are you the originator?
I'm one of the people that worked on this, yeah.
Who's the originator is the question.
I don't understand what you mean by originator.
Who actually wrote the policy?
Who's the one who just wants to put it on the ballot?
Pardon?
Who wants to put it on the ballot? Who's the person who decided to put it on the ballot?
So
It
she
was
said,
a group effort, actually. I mean, there's not.
Every group has a leader.
Oh, okay, well.
she's one of the leaders, she said that.
Yeah.
And you know, let's not get too upset with each other. Let's remember, we live in the United States, we each get to have our opinion, and we happen to have some differences of opinion. So, but I have never fought with Lori. I have never fought with Sue Taylor. So don't get too upset. But no, I understand the question, and she said clearly that they had a grassroots group, and I will tell you that's what it is. To my knowledge, there's no big money, no big player behind them, and I'm on the other side.
Okay.
And we do have big money and big players behind what we're trying to do.
When I heard the first gentleman speak, he introduced himself. He was an outsider who was supporting it. So that's why I was wondering, who is the originator who's going to speak up and defend it? That's what I was trying to say.
And my reason is that I've been here for about 3 years, and so I wasn't involved with the petitions and so on. I only became involved lately, probably in the last 3 months, 2 months,
Yeah.
as I found out about this.
That's what I wanted to know. So Lori's one of the originators.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say I'm one of them. There you go.
Okay.
That works.
So it's really, maybe the money seems to indicate to some people who should win and shouldn't win, because the big money is opposing it, and so I'm sorry for that, but we got the help we could get. I would oppose this if I had to go out and beg for money, because what I believe in and what I spent 17 years on the board as was trying to have a well-managed system. I listened to Dee talk about managed growth or what do you call it? It is language. Controlled growth.
Yeah.
I listened to that, and that's what a general plan is supposed to be. But we've gone through years and years of process, and we're nearing the end of a period that my motion in 1989 started, and now we have two initiatives that will radically upset what has been done to date, to the point that you may have to start over. And I'll go through that some more in my rebuttal. But so they're the grassroots folks, and we're on the development side merely because that's the people that had the money to fund it.
Thank you.
Billboards on the highway, yes or no? No, I'm kidding.
Certainly not digital, okay?
What are the types of jobs, and I guess we could say jobs, that will be impacted if E&G pass or not pass? What types of jobs will be impacted?
You know, that's such an interesting thing.
It's pretty wide.
Yeah, it is. I'm thinking that there's
Attorneys.
and there's a lot of speculation in this that, as I read it straightforward, I don't see the impacts that some people are saying are going to happen, because we already have our land use designations of what kind of development we want where in the county. It's already planned out. And then there's the zoning that helps make that happen. Those are the rules to build and develop in those areas as the plan says. So that's not going to change. The only projects that may be affected, it's back to that discretionary word. And as Steve pointed out, that's when you have exceptions to the plan. So we're saying stick to the plan. And if you want to do something different, there is in this one, you can do a discretionary project of 5 or more housing units. But if it's going to cause the gridlock traffic, you know, that developer is responsible for improving the roads themselves. If they're going to negatively impact the traffic because they want to develop something, and it's only gridlock traffic during peak hours, which I guess is like an hour in the morning and an hour here at rush hour. They could actually impact it at midnight if they wanted to, but I don't see that happening. So I think there's just a lot of kind of speculation about this. We have a plan. And I think a lot of people agree that if there's going to be negative impacts, the developer should pay for those. Most taxpayers don't want to pay for new roads for impacting projects. Oh.
I was going to have the other side.
Oh, the other side. Oh, yes, please, the other side.
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I disagree. I think that our prospect for retail and box stores will practically become nil. And the reason for it is under the road initiative, which is E. It not only says that the developers have to build the roads first before the project, it actually says developers have to build the roads before they can submit their application for the project. How do you know what roads to build unless you have a project and a map that tells you how many housing units you're going to have? I talked to the Department of Transportation about this. I said, how would you possibly come up with telling a developer what kind of roads to improve before you have a map before you didn't know anything about? They said we couldn't. It'd be impossible for us to do. But furthermore, just in practicality, what developer is going to put out millions of dollars putting in roads and then take their application and say, please approve this project? It's not going to happen. And your retail businesses, they will not come here if they believe that there are not going to be more homes being built. They depend upon additional homes coming in down the road. It's economics.
Well, I thank you all for your patience. Comprehensive financial report. Who's that? Raise your hand. Which one is that? Is that both? Who's going to take responsibility for this? Because I can't read it.
Go ahead and some messages.
Oh, all right. Long-term debt in 2000. Want to take credit for that?
in the year 2000, 1999, long-term debt was about $90 million. The year
How
before
much?
that, it was a little bit less. This year, actually 2013, long-term debt was $390 million. In the year 1999, you had 2 bonds. This, yeah, about the whole area. It has to do with the use of water, it has to do with growth, it has to do with houses. $400 million. So what I'm asking, when I moved here, I was told that as a current resident, that we would not have to pay for the development costs of new development. So why did they pass 8 new bonds, increase the debt to almost $400 million, so that I would have to pay for new development? That's the comprehensive financial report.
Can we get that back to how that's the ESG issue?
Yeah, I don't.
ESG has to do with long-term growth. The growth of this community.
You want to try this one?
Yeah, I know. I don't see it related to E&G so
It has to do
much.
with houses.
It does, and you're right. We were promised that we wouldn't have to pay for future infrastructure.
Self-funding. It's like
You're right.
More houses, you've got to pay for them. You got to pay for the growth. No new homes, you don't have to worry about paying for growth.
But the bonds, I think for the most part that you're talking about are the EID bonds. And those bonds are not necessarily to buy new things for new housing. When you're in any business, you have to take care of what you have and prepare for its replacement. Most of the EID bonds, if you take them out a piece at a time, as an example, in or about 1956, 58, we built Sly Park Reservoir and a fancy new pipeline that came clear down to, where'd that thing end? It ended in El Dorado, I think. And that pipeline was made out of the same kind of material as Corvette cars were made out of, that plastic stuff. It's deteriorating in place. Most of this money that you're talking about is going to replace that pipeline because it is literally falling apart underground. So they've got to replace it. But that's what you have to do when you're in the water delivery business, when you're in the people transportation business, when you're in the facilities business, is you better figure out how you're going to pay. If we didn't add another person to the county, you'd still have to fix those pipelines and those roadways because they deteriorate.
That accounted for part of it. There's a $4 million debt incurred to build because of the new development over on Latrobe. There was a $4 million debt that was incurred.
If you want to sit down with the specific,
Pay it back to the developers.
if you want to sit down with the specific papers and specific information, I'll give you my card when I leave. We'll sit down and have a cup of coffee, and I'll try and help you figure it out. But I can't read your crystal ball right now.
I'd love to.
I just said.
My pleasure.
So much.
Anything more complex than what's your favorite colors coming back to you? So isn't the development question just economics 1A? Please, and expand if you would.
Okay, isn't the development question just Econ 1A? That is, that if you dump thousands of additional houses, condos, and apartments into an area, you're going to drop or at least hold down appreciation on existing homes. That would not be the case if you weren't dumping a bunch of new supply. I mean, isn't it just supply and demand? Isn't it the difference, in other words, between Palo Alto or Boulder that I just learned about on the one hand, and say Stockton or Riverside County or San Bernardino on the other?
Yes.
So I'll use Boulder as an example. So with their restrictive development there, typical house is about $1 million. Going 15 miles down, I think it's 36. You've got Westminster, where you can buy similar homes in the 200 to 300,000 range.
And those are those areas that would otherwise be apples to apples, except for that issue.
So, but those areas are completely covered with houses.
Yes, please.
In California, every county is told how many units of housing we are supposed to accommodate over a future timeline. And we're supposed to accommodate homes for very low, moderate, and above moderate income earners. In El Dorado County, we have plenty of supply for those that earn above moderate incomes. We are sorely lacking homes for the moderate income earners for sale and even for the low income earners rentals. Today, as I told you, I'm a real estate broker. I have at least a half a dozen people that need to buy a house priced under $350,000. It isn't here. Furthermore, we don't have the homes the seniors want here. They want to sell their homes out on 5 acres in the county. They want to go into something smaller. The number of one-story small homes in El Dorado County is not very many. So we don't have homes for our seniors. We don't have homes for our workforce. We don't have homes for our moderate income earners.
So that, if I can ask, you know, I've heard you describe what's going on qualitatively, and it's the Joe the Plumber syndrome, where you're describing a case, and it doesn't really address the quantitative question. So exactly how many houses in each category is the state obligating us to take on in the county, and how does that compare with what's on the plans, you know, that are in the process of being approved or have been approved by the Board of Supervisors?
I didn't bring that information with me. It is knowable. SACOG, Sacramento Area Council of Governments, they are the body that dictate to the 6 counties surrounding Sacramento what our housing allocation is. And every year, the state of California requires that we report to them what we're doing to accommodate what they tell us to have.
Is there anybody at the county level who has analyzed that on a quantitative level?
Yes. Yeah.
They do it annually.
Yes, annually.
There's an annual report, exactly what you're talking about. It talks about how many we have, how many we're supposed to have, and what's attainable.
So it's going to show the number that have been approved minus, you'll be able to see number approved minus.
You can
the
go on
number that
the
we're obligated.
county planning department website and look at the housing element, and the numbers you're looking for are there.
One more note, as of December 15th, the county now allows on multifamily designated land that you can build detached housing units. We didn't have that ability until December. In order to build homes for the moderate income earners, and I'm also meaning homes under 400,000, you have to build homes at a density of 7 to 9 dwelling units per acre. We didn't have the ability to do that until December 15th. I am hopeful that now we're going to be able to have some builders that can build the homes we need.
You answered my question, which was going to be, what about people like me who are never going to be able to afford 5 acres, 10 acres? Yeah, I think I can make it through this one. Do you really believe the planned development on the west end will add to the businesses that are east of Shingle Springs? People do not go east, they go west. The interjection. So,
Yeah, that's been a,
will it add?
it's the tax leakage that everybody always brings up and where people shop. And it's really a complex issue when you start and analyze it, because a lot of our folks actually go down to Sacramento for work. And I was talking to a gentleman one time, and he said, you know, Lori, the county has to be a little bit realistic about it, because we are so close to the state government center. And those are very secure jobs. And so people kind of like those jobs. And so, but they don't want, a lot of those people want to commute down there, do their job, then they want to get out of the city and go home. And that's a choice. And I know a lot of my friends actually do that. So, and the unfortunate part is, if they're going down the hill for work, the reality is they're going to stop and shop on their way home. So, putting the shopping, you know, further east in the county, is that really going to capture as many of the people that are commuting down the hill? I don't have the answer to that, but I suspect probably not. Most folks do go west. And it is a problem that we have with there's a jobs to housing ratio that is way out of whack in our county. And that's another thing we're supposed to be addressing, actually, is to get that back in balance. We have I think it's 0.6 jobs per house. I believe that was the last number. Do you remember? I think it was right around there. And so, building more houses is kind of like, well, wait a minute, the jobs should be coming too. So, so it's it is a very complex thing, and I don't think anybody has a crystal ball to know exactly how all these things are going to come together. Plus, the economy is a factor that we can't control that. So sometimes the decisions that are made are a little bit questionable if they're going to pan out. And I'm sure you have more to add to that.
So, the simple answer to the question is, I believe yes, that people will eventually get to the point where they're going to drive uphill. And I believe they'll tire of the traffic further west of here. Because as they've looked in Rancho Cordova, there are no solutions to the traffic problems. Wherever you turn, you're going to meet a traffic jam. So people will start to turn around. I have some minor experience in retail. My mother had a women's and children's wear on Main Street in Placerville for 42 years. And there's one thing missing in El Dorado County, or at least in the central portion right now, and that's a place to do comparative buying. People that are in the retail business, if you only go up one place that sells washing machines, then you're going to go someplace where you can compare. The problem is that once you get there, you're going to buy there, and you're probably going to buy something else there. People like to compare. Now, the internet has changed that substantially, but there's still nothing like getting hands-on comparison. And so I think as we build something in the Placerville area, in the Missouri Flat area, I think people will come there and shop from El Dorado Hills, maybe even further. I'm just, will bet on it, so.
Well, that was my question, and I'm going to respectfully disagree with Jack. I've known him for years. When I worked up in the Hill for the fire department, I shopped in town. I'm your perfect example. I live in Cameron Park. I'm retired. I don't go east any longer. I go west. So I just don't think all the homes down here are going to do anything for the businesses in Placerville proper. And I'm talking Main Street, Placerville, that area. You're going to get your tourists. I work part-time at Sam's Club now. I've been there 7 years. I see everybody that I know live up the hill at Sam's. I ask people all the time, do you go east? People live down here, El Dorado Hills, Cameron Park. No, we don't go east. There's no reason to go east. Like for me, there's no reason to go east unless I'm going to go visit my son or do specific shopping at places I've shopped for years at Christmas and such. So I just really respectfully do not feel thousands of houses down here are going to help the businesses in Placerville. And I'm concerned about Placerville because I love Placerville. So that's all I have to say.
If I could add one other comment then. As of December 15th, for the first time, El Dorado County has a home occupation ordinance. And in that ordinance, it says that anybody can have a business in their home, and under certain conditions, they can also have one employee or independent contractor with them. We did not have that legal right to do that until December 15th. I'm hoping that we will bring in more home-based businesses. And if you're working from home and you live here, you're probably going to shop closer to home as well.
Okay, this is about roads, and it's more like this. There are 17,000 homes already entitled. They can pull permits tomorrow, quotes. 8,000 of these are in EDH. Another 11,000 homes are being built in Folsom. How can our roads handle this traffic? How will E&G help or hurt?
Wow, that's a lot of homes.
Well,
Can you please read that one again?
Yeah.
'Cause I'm-
let's just make it roads, E&G.
Yeah.
Good, bad, otherwise.
That's the whole point, is that if you're gonna build a project that's not already planned for in the general plan, because we do have a plan, if you're gonna go beyond what the plan says and add to that traffic, this Measure E is saying that you need to fix the roads first.
I'm going to add a little bit to that, and that is that if you throw a bunch of homes in El Dorado Hills and in Cameron Park, they are going to go shop in Folsom, and they are going to go west. That means that their tax money is going to another county, but their services are going to have to be provided by our county. Providing by our county means that these dense areas now become money drains for the county rather than as something that will help the county.
So, in this county, at least ever since CEQA came into being in about 1972, if you did a new project, whether it was consistent with the general plan or not, you had to do a CEQA document. And that set forth what the impacts of the project were, and you had to mitigate those impacts, which included roads. And the Measure Y system changed how you could use the money. And one of the things that got excluded was it specifically said in it, you couldn't use the county money for creating new capacity for new homes. The problem with this amendment today is that they want you to build, before you process your application, the roads, and they want you to build the roads to sufficient capacity to accommodate the existing, your project, and the planned future. So that means that you would have to build all the roads out that are planned in the TIM feed program, as an example, that were near or relevant to your project. And it's a cost that's unbearable by any property owner. So it simply befuddles the process. If nobody does a project, nobody will be building new roads, and we won't have any road money. So I think it fails, and I think that if this had had a better public examination and debates like we're having tonight, these discussions that entice people to go home and read this stuff a little more carefully, I think there's a better way to solve the problem, and I think it's been solved. And I'll talk about it a little bit in my closure.
Yeah, clarify something for me. You mentioned that it is not in the plan. How did I hear that? And explain that, and I want you to respond to it.
Right, well, because this is that extra road requirement of putting in the road first.
So what's not in the plan?
If it's a discretionary project that's beyond, you know.
I mean, haven't these
For example-
developments been kind of in place for a long time?
Well, no,
The concept
actually.
of them?
Right, we have a plan, and Marble Valley is the best example we have. Marble Valley's already approved for, I think it's 398, it's close to 400 homes. Right now, it's approved to build those
So
homes.
let's build it. It's approved.
Right,
No, we can't
but-
because of the roads?
Well, no, because they could build that one right now today, because that's already in the plan. But the developer wants to build a higher density version of Marble Valley that's 3,200 homes.
So,
And that's beyond the plan, and it would impact the freeway, the
can you
community.
speak to that?
Yeah, and that's the
Speak to that.
I finally understand what they were trying to do, and I will tell you that it's the wrong approach. And the reason I'll tell you that is it says traffic from, their proposal is traffic from residential development projects of 5 or more units has to do all this. I think what they meant was, if it requires a general plan amendment, if it's not already included in the general plan, you have to do that. That's where it fails. And I never understood this, what they were trying to do, until Lori just explained it. So I think what she's saying is if you come in and your project matches the current county general plan and zoning, okay, you can move ahead. But that still requires that you go through the subdivision process with a tentative map and an EIR that shows your impact. But what she just said to me that made me understand it better was that they wanted to say, if you want to amend the general plan so that there can be even more density, then you have to do these things. And that's not what the measure says.
Disagree.
I want to make sure you guys have 10 minutes each. I'm going to do one more question from the audience, and we'll get on to the ending statement. Is it true that if E&G pass, Sandstino and other projects already in the house will not be stopped? Does that make sense?
It does, because they're already in the pipeline. You know, that's been a really good question. My understanding is these would take effect immediately, and that those projects and those ones that were mentioned are above and beyond our plan, so they're discretionary, require general plan amendment. They would have to comply with this. That's my understanding. And I'm sure that the developers of those projects would probably disagree.
As I said earlier about the jobs, it'd be about attorneys. What most people don't put together is this whole process issue. And first you have the general plan, then you have the zoning. And the state law tells you that under the general plan and zoning, you can do a development, subdivision. Let's talk about subdivision since that's what we're all talking about. Let's not talk about commercial. So you can do a subdivision by starting the tentative map process. And you go through this process. Then there's the Permit Streamlining Act. And the Permit Streamlining Act says that within 30 days of submittal of your documentation, the local agency must tell you whether your application is complete or incomplete. Once you finally get a complete application in, they give you a notice that your project is now deemed complete. That doesn't mean anything except all the paperwork's in. We can now proceed to process your project. These projects are already deemed complete. Therefore, they will be processed according to state law under whatever zoning and general plan was in effect at the time of their application was deemed complete. A subsequent amendment cannot supersede that which was already in place. So I'm sorry, but these amendments, E&G, will not stop those projects that have raised the very concern that these people have. What did happen, what did come out of all this, is the Board of Supervisors in December of 15 passed policy J6. And that says, wait a minute, when anybody wants to come into this county and talk about changing our general plan, first they come to the Board of Supervisors and we give them some information that they can pay attention to and see whether they will really want to attempt that process or not. And so there's a whole policy in that J6 that I think will help the people that are here, will help the development community, it'll help the landowners better understand what the community wants up front before they've spent $1 million or $2 million on developing their plans and their EIRs. So,
Can I follow with something on that real quick?
A little shy here, but yes, please.
Well, and also you have to remember that just because Sandstino, for example, is in the pipeline, the community is going to challenge it. They will, because of the impacts. There's the CEQA process, and if the CEQA shows that there's impacts and the board approves it anyway, quite honestly, then the community can take that to court for violating CEQA. The process is huge. We know that. We've seen the process over and over, and it's long, and the community has to hang in there with these projects. And so that land, for example, has had other projects proposed on it, and they're not built yet because the community said no, that's going to negatively impact us. So if the community can stop the project this time, and we have this in for next time, it'll make our lives better.
Okay. So time to sum it up. Who wants to go first? Give us your best stuff. Yeah, let's do it. We're on their time after 9 o'clock. So
Okay.
go.
Okay. Well, you guys, well, unless you go to the board meetings and you're there, and have read pages, it's not easy to follow. It's not. Thank you.